And will introduce.
Hi, everyone. I am delighted to introduce Maria Karadimitri Staplefeld, whose presentation centers on reparations and decolonization. Maria was born and educated in Athens, and while earning a political science and history degree at Pantheon University, she studied in Spain, and she now is pursuing a master's degree in Berlin at Free University. So everyone, please welcome Maria.
Hello. Hello again. Thank you, Kellan. Thank all of you, Sarah, Yamil, Dr. Ingo Peters. I'm so happy to see you again. Ozzy missed you. I can assure you. I don't know if you miss it as well, but so I will share my screen right now to show you my presentation.
Yeah, just do this one.
Yes.
Can everyone see?
Can everyone see?
Yes.
Okay, so in this presentation, I would like to focus on an issue that has taken on international dimensions in the last 20 years in the academy, and is the reparations of colonialism. So I will build my argument on 4 levels. After I read you, I will talk about the concept we are dealing with, namely colonialism, decolonization, reparations, and finally, which is the most challenging part, I will try to link reparations to international relations and refer to the reparations process that are currently in progress. So I skip the Freire quote. So the colonial fever of the era began with the Berlin International Conference on 1884, 1885, some streets around here, and where the map of Africa literally drawn by the colonial powers of the time. That will be the starting point of a ruthless, voracious exploitation of human and natural resources on the one hand, and of a systematic racist dehumanization on the other hand, in theory and practice. However, the relations between oppressed and oppressor was not linear, but had reactions, revolts, munitions, and a series of revolutionary organization on the part of natives. Thus, there have also been some activist voices from the side of West, like the Congo Reform Association, where a group of academics and journalists such as Mark Twain, Joseph Conrad, Booker Washington, Russell Brand, through journalistic articles, novels, even an open letter to King Leopold II to himself, criticized colonialism, tried to communicate the atrocities occurred to their fellow citizens. So now we will see how the academy's engagement with colonialism and the attempt to break down old stereotypes and correct past injustices began. So in the aftermath of the Holocaust, there arose the necessity to investigate events that led to massive extermination of ethnic and religious groups. The scientific field that investigated these events, which was mainly developed during 70s, 60s, like Professor Patel mentioned, is genocide studies. The purpose behind the creation of the field is to develop a collective memory through the research and analysis of historic events in order to prevent the repetition of similar catastrophes for humanity. So specifically, colonial genocide is an issue that emerged in the 90s after colonies gained their independence, and they was searching for their historical memories and origins after 3 centuries of the colonial obscurism. So Despite the good intentions of modern human rights institutions, there are also some limitations. So we make also critique in order to improve ourselves, etc. So Professor of Human Rights and Law, Makau Wamutua, makes an open critique of modern human rights. He is an American Kenyan professor of law and human rights in America. And in his schema, the savage, that is a third world state organized with authoritarian structures following a culture that on the one hand has a historicity in the geographical space it is maintained, but on the other hand is not in the line with the principles and norms of international human rights, violates them. Consequently, the inhabitants are transformed into victims who need the intervention of the civilized West and its international organizations, namely the Savior, who will restore justice as she understands justice through his own cultural and own traditional religious traditions. So, having addressed the issue of colonialism and decolonialism, now I will go to decolonialism in greater detail, and then I will turn to issue of reparations. So the process of reparations is in principle a multi-level process. It's not only about monetary compensation. Reparations is given by the perpetrator as an acknowledgement that as an acknowledgement and practical acceptance that the victim who receives it has been harmed in terms of her fundamental rights. And the wrongdoer, the one who committed the initial act, acknowledges that she acted wrongly, she violated international law, and thereby harmed the victim. So in doing so, the perpetrator apologizes and provides reparations in order to make the victim whole again. While international law is to be universally applicable, in reality, it is states that are required to pay the reparations. And now the topic becomes political. So now this is a paradigm, for classical international relationship. Okay, I am Greek. I have other historical approaches. So in a verbal duel between the Athenians and Miles, Thucydides sets out the issue of justice versus power. I would say Thucydides. He's not a professor. He doesn't make a theory of international relationships. He's a historian, and he wrote down about the Peloponnesian War. The Peloponnesian War is between Athenians, the imperial power of that time, and the other cities of Greece that would or stay neutral or go with his enemy, their enemy that was Sparta. Sparta was an oligarchy. Athens was a democracy. Okay. So in a verbal duel between the Athenians and Miles, Thucydides sets out the issue justice versus power. So that according to human reason, we can speak of justice between states when both parties have equal power and the strong state advances as his strength allows it, and the weak one retreats as its weakness requires it to, wrote Thucydides. Historically, what happened to the Athenians who would enter, who would push all the colonies at the time to enter to their alliance, the Athenian alliance. Their democratic values, progress, justice were replaced by the need to safeguard dominance and security. And so Athens declined by violating its own principles and multiplying its enemies. So now I go back to reparations. It's an essay, so it's not a paper. It's not an academic argument. It's more like an essay. When reparations is not provided, it makes the victim live in two times, in the present and the past. It contributes to the victim's continuing suffering, into continuing harm, which over the time results to a cycle of victimization and characterizes the way the victim sees itself and the way the international community perceives the victim. And this endless cycle of victimization has a past, a present, and a future. So providing reparations is an act of power. It shows power and sovereignty for a state to take responsibility under international law. It shows how it perceives itself in the world and what is the role that wants to play in it. On the other side, we have not to forget that the strategy of soft power that characterized post-war Europe and is now more necessary than ever. It describes the exercise of political power on the basis of cultural capital, and Europe had a lot of cultural capital with the help, of course, of international institutions. So now, what are the prospects today? So slave trade was a profitable enterprise. It was a norm of the time. It was a norm of the time that slaves were used for all purposes, and when they were no longer productive, they were left to die. War, revolution is over, French Revolution, and the moral dilemma over the slave trade were the principal elements that shaped the abolition of slavery. The tragic event of George Floyd's death in 2020, I wasn't there, but I have heard that it was a bottom-up movement, reopened the conversation to rectify wrongs in history. In particular, the US agreed to compensate victims of slavery who had ceased justice. I know that we are talking about individual persons. I don't know if they have built the US a fund for reparations for slavery yet, but it's in process. And in Germany, officially recognized the genocide in Namibia and agreed to provide 1.1 billion euros for community project. But this announcement appointed did not label Germany's initiative as formal reparations. The delegation is missing here, and was not accompanied by a formal apology. But it does shows, of course, progress on the issue of reparations. So, last slide. The road to the vindication of the victims and the creation of the legal framework that makes human rights violation and military attack a strategy that does not benefit the perpetrator passes through not only the legal framework, but also the moral responsibility to repair, the moral responsibility to occur harm. While as for the communities affected, a strategy that combines legal advocacy, political mobility, and joint action in a spirit of universalism and solidarity could be a constructive plan for reparation claims worldwide. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much, Maria. Would you like to take some questions?
Yes, of course.
I have a question.
Okay.
So thank you. Come up, maybe. It's better.
It's Carrie.
Tracy, I think.
Tracy.
Hi, Maria. So thank you again for your presentation. It was awesome to hear it also a second time. So I really enjoyed it. I had a question just kind of going back to like colonial reparations today on whether you've seen any cases where it's more than just a one-time payment or a one-time recognition of something, but really a sustainable approach to it that not only, is for the victim or, the ancestors, not the ancestors, but the descendants of victims, but also, the country that did perpetrate, a variety of injustices. and kind of, bringing that into the community and making it known, kind of what we talked about before, that it also reaches, the public and not just people in the academy or just, a certain subset of people. But yeah, if you had just, seen any cases in Germany, US, wherever, where it was more of a sustainable and multi-level approach and not just one payment and an apology, and that was it.
Okay, as I know, the last years after George Floyd, after George Floyd opened really this conversation about reparations. In the US, as I know, the Harvard University have made a fund for victims of colonization and eugenics, racist researches that happened in the 20th century, all these theories. So France, no, we have the reparation for Mau Mau from Britain. They made it right. They made it legally, as it should be apology and reparation. It was a very successful case for us. Germany tried, I think, to do this soft legalization. I can say it's like this Kellan theory of soft legalization. So here we have a law, a delegation about obligation. So they apologize. They apologize. Obligation. We have precision, soft precision. Sorry, obligation. They accept it's a genocide, but low precision because they didn't apologize. Okay. And no delegation because it's not a reparation. It's a development fund, development community fund.
Thank you.
Other questions here or in Berlin or on Zoom? Tim, please approach. Or give it there.
Yeah, I'll do it from here. Hi, Maria, this is Tim. I had a quick question. So you really emphasize the relevance of an apology and kind of the admittance of wrongdoing in the grand scheme of reparations. And I'd like for you to kind of expand on that. And so you said in the case of Germany, this wasn't really the case, or it's more of a soft acceptance with these developmental payments. Where do apologies and admittance of wrongdoings fit into the grand scheme of reparations? Is it a critical feature, or is it more if you do one or not the other, it still doesn't hold the value of kind of having both of them together?
Yes, as I said before, that reparation is a multi-level process. It's not only the monetary compensation, it's also the acknowledgement that I violated the international law, and I apologize for that. And I have to take the responsibility to repair. To repair the harm I occurred to the victim. So this is very important, more about the way the victim sees himself and the way the international community sees the victim. So it's more immoral, but it's the same. It's like cultural capital. It's not material capital, but it's like cultural capital for the victim.
Thank you so much.
Good. We have another question from Ingo.
Yeah, I hope I can make it work from here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. It's nice to see you again. Thank you for your lovely presentation. I just want to make a case about words again, discussing or follow up on Tim's question in a way. I see a categorical difference between apologizing and asking somebody to beg you pardon. Is this at all categorized in the literature? Apologizing is so easily done. I apologize and then I walk out of the room and carry on. But to beg somebody pardon is really stressing the social relationship between the victim and the perpetrator in a way. And the victim has to, in a way, concede this kind of pardon. Yeah. Is there any discussion of this difference of different ways, strategies to apologize in the literature? Thank you.
You're welcome. To apologize to apologize. You know, if it will be with monetary compensation or only to apologize, how you apologize.
The formal act, as you were differentiating reparations, giving money or otherwise compensation, but the first state of acknowledging your guilt in a way, your responsibility. Yeah, this can be done in various ways. One is simply to apologize, and the other is to beg somebody's pardon.
Yes,
not-
and yes, it goes together. So I know what you mean. There are a lot of states. Holland last month, I think, they apologized. I know to some old African colonies. No, this is not the reparation. The reparation is two level. It's the same process: apology and monetary compensation. It doesn't work to apology if you don't repair the victim to make the victim whole again. You understand? This is the legal how lawyers see it. I have read a lot of lawyer articles, and there is a missing thing in literature, because you have only from lawyers or only from critical decolonization literature about critical theories and so what we have to do and where is the problem, what we have to do, but there is not something that combines the political and the legal together, and understand that this is not only a legal thing, it's a thing of international relations, how states react each other, and what is the build they want to show to the world. And I think we have to find a strategy for all the because now it's the time we have to find a strategy that occurs all the old colonizers, like France, a pattern, France, Great Britain, Germany, Holland. We have to find a pattern that everyone will be at least in some kind, at some point, okay with this decision, content with the decision.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Maria. That was wonderful and highly relevant. And now I'm going to turn it over to Tim Fry, who's going to introduce our third presenter.
Would be applaud again. Finalizing Maria presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. So I have the